So let's hear now about the models for youth policy design at the municipality level, the work of the DYPALL Network that has been doing with different municipalities in Portugal, how youth policy development model functions in Portugal.
Thank you, Barbara. Just to thank you also to the partners, to Nausika and to For Europe, to the representatives for organizing this conference. It's always something, I think it comes with extra work. Sometimes it's very easy that we do just the partners meetings among the partners, we exchange the things, we do a publication and then it's finished. But organizing an event that is able to discuss things from the project, but also it's always an extra work, an extra dedication, but I think for me it's a lot meaningful. So thank you for allocating this time and this work to organize this event, and also for the people for coming, definitely. More than sharing models, I would share a couple of questions along this short presentation, and I think we'll have opportunity here to talk. Let's see how this goes. I try to stand up. It's just an excuse because I'm tired to be seated. But let's see how. What's your name? Alexandra, how was this telepathy when we change the slide? So because I also don't know very well the slides that go next, so maybe you can change, and I think I start with a couple of, it's a lot of questions, so maybe we can start. So what do we mean by youth policies, or even by local youth policies? Sometimes, and it's often we talk about youth policy, when I ask, do you have a youth policy framework in your city? Can I see the number of hands? If you have, okay, they have, okay. But often when we are talking about youth policy, we are talking and confusing youth policy with youth programs. Okay, we have youth centers, we have a program for entrepreneurship, we have a program for citizenship education, for funding of NGOs, for health, mental health, okay? We have a lot of things, and this is great, because we have a policy, and I'll explain very briefly what is a policy, and not having the things that matter in place, that are the programs, are the actions, the measures. It's better not to have a policy and to have the equipments, the infrastructure, the funding, the people working within the structures, the NGOs supporting, than to have a youth policy framework. But to have a youth policy framework, it's very rare. I count in Portugal the cities by one hand. We have 308 municipalities. How many municipalities do we have in Poland? A lot more. 1,000 or 2,000? 2,000 and something. I didn't Google it, but maybe we have a couple of hands more, okay? But if I ask to a representative of a municipality if they have a youth policy, they say yes, we have. And I say, well, no, we have some problems in education, in some problems in employment and so on. It's everywhere and often is nowhere. This is the problem of youth policies at municipality level or even at national level. Something I would like to highlight is that also the problem of youth policy is not just a local framework, because often it's a national or regional policy, okay? What it means that the responsibility of youth is not so much in the municipality, this depends on country to country, but is more on other levels, or state or regional level. Fortunately, the mindset is changing, okay? It's changing by law, it's changing by initiative, because in practice the municipalities always did a lot of things, okay, for young people, because they are the closest link. They are the ones that are closest to young people, to the NGOs, to the schools, and so on and so on and so on. But so now it's being, and fortunately it's still not mainstream, fortunately it's still something that is not so normal to have as we would like to see, but we are now more and more creating a framework. And what is a framework? What is a local youth policy or a youth policy? Basically, it's a framework, it's an orientation. Yes, strategical objectives that tell me where I want to go, okay? And then comes the programs and the actions to support this framework, to tell me, okay, in education or in integration or in healthcare, we're talking about migrants, okay, we want that migrants will have access to mental care and so on, or X number will not, or reduce the dropouts for school and so on. And then we have in place the different programs that are supporting this, okay? Very often we have the problems when we don't have the framework. That's great, okay? So what is the advantages and maybe we can change because I think I'm already moving a little bit further. This is the face that many people, when we talk about youth policy, no, we know, others scared, no, I don't want to know about it. So different reactions when we go to youth policy. Maybe the next slide. Okay. So why to allocate so much energy and time into another document, okay? Because usually municipalities, they have a lot of strategies. Strategical 2030, 2025, 20, of different areas, okay? So why to have another one? In DYPALL Network, we advocate a lot for it. It's one of our core areas, is really to tell, yes, you need to have, for different reasons. One of them is because, as I was telling before, and Matheus, the director here, was telling, okay, we have only 5 people. Only, I'm putting only, so it's a subjective. We have 5 people working in the municipality, and fortunately, because they cooperate with a lot of entities, of NGOs, and I think it's an approach to congratulate. Because also then the education department, the transportation, the housing, whatever, they will have also probably programs and so on, and people allocated and focusing on it. But the fact of not having a framework doesn't allow us to understand where we want to go. I can have a lot of youth equipments, a lot of youth centers, but for what? It's to have young people outside of the street? Maybe it is, so I need to know how many people were in the street before and how many people are in the youth center now. So it allows me to measure. It's to develop then citizenship education programs or center of initiative or whatever I want to develop with these equipments. But it gives me a framework to understand where I am and where I want to go. Okay? And this is usually where municipalities and NGOs are sometimes missing with their programs. Okay? To have this strategical approach, okay, this is where I am, this program will have these different actions, and this is where I want to go. This is one of the reasons why to have such a document. Another reason why to have such a policy framework from you guys, or it's just another document?
It's a very good tool to attract more funding for the youth sector because you have a background, you have rationale, you can align some things, you can empower a lot of actors to work on their projects because you have a framework for it.
Definitely, thank you, Andres. Efficiency of the use of resources, okay? To attract funding because we know also where we want to go in the long-term perspective, but many times I have a program, let's use the example of mental health. That is something now, also due to the pandemic, that is also an issue. And maybe I have the healthcare national program or whatever has a national program to support young people in mental health. But maybe I have different NGOs that are working with healthcare that also have their own programs. And all this is working separated, independent. That sometimes is great because it's more answers. But if we are able to understand what each is doing, to understand, okay, what within this mental health approach, with this support, are we missing? Are we not, maybe minority ethnic groups are not participating in this program. So I can immediately think about and recanalize resources, think about missing gaps within my policy. And we could be talking about employment, culture, or whatever. It helps to bring more efficiency of resources because I go to get inside of my house, also, again, inside, when I say inside of my house, inside of my municipality departments, so the public programs that are in place, and to see if they are supporting each other, to see what are the missing gaps, but I go also to civil society, okay, and to other national and even European programs, and I can align these. So it's about better use of resources, it's about putting and using the potential also of the local dimension, how I'm cooperating with these local networks, how I'm cooperating with the different institutes, public and private, and putting them aligned and cooperating in one direction. So it really is important to have such a document, but that it works not just as a document. And then I go a little bit further in terms of the methodology. I don't remember my presentation. Can you go a little bit back, a little bit back, a little bit back? Some back. That's why I don't like presentations. And you want to follow something. No, I think it's back. Yeah, it's the next one. It's the next one. Thank you. Okay. That's that picture I don't remember. I think it's Salvador Dali. But I think it was this part of having a direction and trying to align a little bit of our efforts. So again, I was saying sometimes, and we see Kraków is a very good example of this, and we saw just a little bit of the amazing programs that they have, the diversity of youth work approaches. We saw from the municipality and how they are cooperating with NGOs, but for sure within the diversity of NGOs and also other public institutions that have more kind of approaches, that have more kind of answers, from education to participation, entrepreneurship, and I think Matheus was touching a lot of different areas that they are within the framework. So there was key areas, okay? There was even key areas in terms of his framework. And all of this is what is important, but are we able to connect the dots? And can you pass to the other one? This one you know? You don't know this painting, for the Polish ones. You can Google it after, huh? What is the name, but I cannot pronounce the first one.
It was Malevich, but it's
okay. So if we are able to connect here the dots, so if you see this, okay, you can have different youth centers, you can have different citizenship programs or initiatives, or even different kinds of entrepreneurship programs, but how are they linked? And I think this is the next one that we need, that the policy framework can really help to connect the dots. Any questions? So for example, are we able to check if the entrepreneurship programs are providing the necessary competence framework and these programs are connected with startup initiatives, programs, or with local incubators? So again, I'm not asking for the municipality to provide me all the answers, but maybe they have this program or they define this need, they can ask an NGO, but I know that this program is connected with the work of another institute or another NGO and so on and so on. So the things are connected and give this framework. Are we able to connect the different programs even inside of our municipality departments? Again, we sometimes give education scholarships. Is this part of this long-term vision of the municipality where we want to make excellency? Kraków is a huge city, yeah? But maybe they want to be excellent in some kind of areas. How we are directing our scholarships and our programs in a certain direction? Are we putting the civil society organization collaborating and complementing each other to the existing public programs, okay? So it's a lot more than a document. It's a methodology, it's a process, okay? Because to make a youth strategy, if Matheus would ask one of his 5 colleagues that is in the youth unit to do it, even if it's a slow person, 1 week, he has a youth policy done. He goes copy-pasting from different municipalities, and it's done, okay? But it's a lot more than a document. That's why I think it's, go for the next one. I will share some of the findings and learnings of implementing this. So, DYPALL is basically just to introduce a little bit of what we are doing. We are doing consultancy for a lot of municipalities, mainly in Portugal and also regions, creating and implementing a youth policy framework within a certain methodology that I'll explain briefly next. This is not our core of existence. Basically, DYPALL is a network that now gathers more than 80 organizations, spread from around 30 countries in Europe. And what we try to do is to put municipalities and local civil society organizations together, learning, exchanging, and trying to discover more about how to engage young people in local governance, okay? How are the local authorities able to engage the thinking, the thoughts, the actions of young people in terms of influencing public policy? Thinking health, thinking housing, thinking public spaces, okay? And how are these youth potentially able to shape their cities in terms of decision making? This is a lot easy to say, makes a lot of sense, but then in terms of practice is a lot more difficult. Here again, Kraków has this youth panel. They always, what is the name? Is the youth?
Citizens committees for citizen dialogue committees.
Citizens dialogue committee. Okay. There is many models. So one of the things that we are doing is mapping these models and making them exchange and learning. So we are providing trainings then on different models. Now we are focusing a lot on digital participation. So we go focusing on different areas, but one of our main aim is really to bring these instruments, these tools into exchange for people to know and be able to adapt and to bring to their local realities. This is our core work. Within the consultancy, we have different things, but this has been one of the cores, and I share with you. So I was telling that it needs a specific methodology. So one of the things, let me see if I remember what comes next. Methodology matters. So I was saying, more than having a document and designing this document, putting it words, how we build a document, the process to build, it really matters. Again, our approach, it's a bit different from many other NGOs that are working and consultancies and even universities that are doing this work for cities. We have a framework that definitely we hear the voices of young people, we have the voices and we have the work of young people in drafting this document, but we go and we involve civil society organizations and public authorities. And when I say it's not just the municipalities, the Employment Institute, the Health Institute, all the key actors. So it's a joint combination and a joint effort, okay? There is a huge committee of all these stakeholders, then there is different kind of instruments to gather the information from young people, some more quantitative, using different kinds of inquiries, others more using methodologies non-formal education, because our aim is not just that people like the ones that are in this room, I would imagine, that has the capacity and to speak in public and so on, are able to share their thoughts, but we want also to go to the poor neighborhood. We also want to hear the voice of the young minorities. So we want to have, because we believe that these ones are the ones that can tell about their problems and can tell. And we are not just focusing on the problems. This is one part of the exercise they do, but then we ask them, okay, what is the solution? What is the solution for this area? And then we work on this with focus group, creating the framework in terms of strategical priorities, in terms of measures, programs and actions to implement, in terms of a time frame and responsibility. So it's more than a strategical document, the youth policy. We always accompany it with what? With the action plan. And this is very important, to have the action plan, because it's there that allows us to evaluate. Is also what allows us to know if all this public money that we are putting and all the energy and effort of the NGOs and time of the staff and the programs, sometimes that are done incorporated or in cooperation or not, are leading us somewhere, okay? Maybe political commitment is fundamental. So also as part of the methodology, as part of the process, but it's something that we really need to build within the process, is that it's not going to be just another more documents. Okay? And for this really to have an impact, especially inside of the house, we need the commitment. So how are we engaging the different departments along this process, the different departments of the municipality? How the decision makers are really committed to this process. So it really needs a strong advocacy process, but also we know that how many years here it changes the local authority. So I always say in English, the mandate, it's what, 4 years?
4 years.
4 years. 4 years sometimes it looks like a lifetime, but it's often very short. The first 2 years the first year they're trying to forget everything that was done before, then they have 2 years of work, and the other years they're already preparing for the election. So usually 2 years of working is really very little, and we know that some are a continuation. But unfortunately cycles are very short and fast within the political cycle of cities. So how we ensure that, okay, it comes a new party, or even new people from the same governance as before, but how we ensure the sustainability of this and the political commitment, okay? How we have this that is really sustainable approach, and this is through the political commitment of the decision makers, but also of the civil society organizations. So how they are involved, and how when the new people arrive, they say, we have a line. We can rethink the line, we can reevaluate, but we have where to go. And this is very important. I'm already shutting up. I don't know how much time I still have. But,
2 minutes.
okay, so maybe you can go for the next slide. The strategical policy approach needs to be complemented with the concrete action plan dimension in place. So I was saying it needs to be tangible. And this is very important, especially for the youth. Young people, but also for the youth movement, for the youth sector. If you're telling us, okay, we want to make Kraków the youth-friendly city and is the entrepreneurship best hub of Europe and so on and so on, and then yes, so it goes all to the strategical and more vision, but it doesn't have a concrete action plan in place. Often NGOs, often young people, the guy there is saying, yeah, it's all beautiful words, but okay, this in practice how it happens. So it's very important that there's an action plan in place. Because to have beautiful words, it's very easy. I go again copy pasting, they will not change so much from one to the other. How they are put, the design can look different in terms of colors of the document, but then it doesn't change so much. The results need to be visible since the start of the process. What kind of results here are we talking about? Because again, sometimes we're talking about policy. Yes, long-term, especially let's talk about housing policy. I don't know how it's in Kraków, but most of the European cities have a huge housing problem already for some years, and it's not happening. In terms of young people accessing to affordable house, but I imagine Kraków is one of my favorite cities in Poland, so I imagine that it should suffer also from the same, it's being quite attractive to young people. And sometimes, okay, we are planning for long term, but how we make these results visible since the start? Any idea? That's why policy doesn't work. Not even young people, they care about policy. No, because there's many ways to make these results feasible. We are not just thinking about such a long term. Again, the action plan can be 1 year, can be 2 years, that tries to make it more tangible. But there's a lot of results that already start to happen. For example, from the process and how the methodology is drafted, the cooperation between NGOs. Okay, the hackathon, I don't know so much details, maybe it was developed by 2, 3, 4 NGOs or by the 8 that was part of this commission. But maybe now there's a lot more, because they discover that they want to work also on these things. So different programs, they start to be having the cooperation of different stakeholders. This is something that happens immediately from the process. Some things that sometimes also results that we see from this experience, and we're talking about setting of different size cities from Cascais, Sintra. Sintra is the one with biggest youth population in the country, is 3,500. That is not 300. No, 350,000. 350,000. That for Poland is not easy. It would be a middle, maybe small, even town, city. But for us, it's already a big city. I'm talking about 10 million countries, 2 major cities. The rest are almost villages. But from 50,000 to 300,000 to 200,000, we have a huge diversity of approaches here. But we see results. We see quite results. And give you the example of Madeira Region. Madeira Region, he had a department because of we had this troika. So after this economic crisis, we had a lot of fusions of different departments to cut cuts. So youth, that was an independent directorate, let's call it, was merged with sports. Okay? Through the process, the politicians, they realized that the work was so much, that the importance was so much that they break it. And now the region of Madeira has a youth department with autonomy. That is why it's important. It's not just to create more administrative burden, it's to have the capacity to decide faster and react faster to things on its own. Many municipalities we saw that didn't even have a youth unit or department. They needed, and they created a youth department on the process. So we see different kinds of results coming out immediately. Besides then what is the evaluation and having the capacity to measure the programs that take a little bit more time. And I think this is that I wanted to share with you guys in terms of why we think within DYPALL Network is important to have a youth policy, besides having the programs, the actions, the equipments. And this is a bit the connection between I think it's finished now. Can you go?
It's one last.
Yeah, it's our contacts if you need some other questions. That's why I think it's very important when we're talking about youth-friendly municipalities that we really have the equipments and the youth centers that are cool for young people, that we have the programs that are really supporting youth initiative, citizenship, entrepreneurship, that we have the funding to NGOs, that we have a lot of things in place, that we have the housing affordable to young people and housing schemes for young people, but we need to have a policy framework. Otherwise, we don't know where we are going. And having a youth policy framework, it helps us to know where we are going, it helps us to improve, use more efficiently and more effective our resources. Basically, was this that I wanted to share, and I think then we can discuss a little bit more.